Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new series of videos where we're going to be looking at the pages from the Book of Jonah. This is the sort of title page, and you can see this is where Jonah is arriving in Nineveh. But this will happen later in the book. The first page we're going to look at is the little quote on the inside pages. These are on the introductory pages just before the book begins. I add a little quote from another part of the Bible which just helps to give context and just kind of gives an overall like feel for the book. It began with Judges, which was our first book, and I used the proverb which basically sums up the book. In that one it was, "Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but God weighs the heart," from Proverbs 21:2. This one on the screen is from Romans, and it says, "What then shall we say? Is God unjust? Not at all. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I have compassion." Now, I'm going to talk about the Book of Jonah, assuming you know what happens in these videos. So we know that the whole point of the book is that God calls Jonah to do a certain thing. Jonah's not very happy about it, but it's God's decision to give mercy to the people who live in Nineveh. And, in spite of everything that they've done, everything they're going to do, God has grace for the people, and that's the theme, of the Book of Jonah. So this New Testament verse really helps to highlight that. It's a New Testament verse, but it's also quoting something God says to Moses. Now, obviously, I could have used the verse from, the books of Moses for this, but it didn't read quite as well. It works better like this. What shall we say? Is God unjust? By starting that way, it really helps it fit better with the Book of Jonah, because that's what Jonah's saying. At the end, he's like, "I knew you'd do this. I knew you're a loving God," and stuff. And he's implying that God is unfair. Then the next page is this one. And then we have the map. Now it's going to be tricky to get. Oh, okay. This is a page which, on the introductory pages, on each one I have a map of the place. Normally it's just a map of Israel. So with this book, obviously I had to broaden out the scope and include the Assyrian Empire, which is where he's going. Nineveh's over here. Jerusalem is there just as a kind of anchor. Nothing happens in Jerusalem in the book, but people know that it's a good place to say, well, Jerusalem's here, and then they go, oh yeah, and the Lake of Galilee, and then Joppa is here, which comes up in the story, and Gath Hepher is a place that's not actually mentioned, but in the other books where it talks about Jonah, in 2 Kings 14:25, he was one who restored the boundaries, talking about the king, restored the boundaries of Israel from here to here, in accordance with what the Lord and the God of Israel has spoken through his servant Jonah, son of Amittai, and the prophet from Gath Hepher. So in that verse, it tells us that when Jonah lived, which is with Jeroboam II, and also that this is where he lived, and this is something you don't get from the book. So this is where, so it's on the map, and then in the actual story, this is the location that I've drawn. It's actually on the page that we're going to look at next time. I was going to stop here. We've only got a few pages to go through, but this time to show you how I made the map. You may be able to tell, but I went to Google Earth. I got the area that I needed, and what's good about Google Earth, of course, is that you get the green where it's really green and everything, and it gives you a nice sort of good representation of the locations. You can't help it having writing on, so you can see up here it says Turkey, and in some places like here and here and here, I've actually gone over it to get rid of the word, so that then I use a Photoshop filter to create the map like this. So I really like this one. It's it's supposed to be like paper, cut out paper, and you choose how many colours it can have and stuff. This is then to fit the style with the other maps that we've had. And then at the top, in the red, you can see the extent of the Assyrian Empire. Now, this was something that wasn't that easy to figure out at a specific time, but luckily I have help from Dr. Mark Woolmer, who is the consultant for the history and stuff of the project, and he helped me. I said, look, this, I had some pictures, and I was like, is this the right size for the empire at the time? And he sent me back some other ones that were a bit smaller than the ones I had, to get it right. Then if I show you as well, I get other, so it's not just the Google one, I get other maps that then I overlay with it. You see that one, that's the old one. This one is another example, and there's a few more. So these ones, this one, this is the one that gave me the size, and so on. So I use several maps to compare, using the modern day kind of satellite image, but then overlaying historical maps, archaeological, etc., and trying to place the location exactly, and give an impression of the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian Empire grows massively, but at this particular moment in time, this is before before they spread out and come down and capture all the land and all that stuff. Now, then we have this page. It says, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, and it says, go to the city of Nineveh and preach against it. So here we've got Jonah praying, and so we use the pink filter as always to show like a prophetic vision. So I've got him having like a vision of the place. Storytelling wise, this is to kind of introduce the character of the city, and also just to make it more interesting, etc. So here I've got an image of the gates, again drawn from an archaeological projection that somebody's made. They got this. The location of Nineveh is well known because it's Mosul today, and actually a lot of the old city, the walls stuff, although they're not standing, they are clearly visible from the sky. So here is again Google Earth. This is a close-up of Mosul. There you go, Mosul. There we go. So you can see there, but what you wouldn't initially be able to pick out is this line that I'm following with the mouse is the city of Nineveh as it was. So this line is actually quite clear, and a lot of it's not built on. It was here, and then it's got this meandering river going through the centre and everything. We're going to see, much more images of the actual city later on, but even in that initial picture that I showed you, this is the location which is all drawn from the real place. So here I wanted to show the city. Some of the parts of the walls are actually standing, and that's how they actually have good idea of what it looked like. Though some parts of the wall being buried, and then they sort of dug it up and everything. Here they've got an archway and a ramp going up to this high up gateway, and you can see through into this second set of walls. So this is the my Pinterest board. So you can it's a public board. You can go there, look at all the source material and stuff. But here, for example, you can see the city. You saw it on Google Earth, and then this is like it was at the time. And then here, what they've done is they've made reconstructions of the gates, trying to make them look how they did at the time. So obviously this is an inspiration. And here, this is the one that I was talking about. This is the main inspiration. This site where let me see if I can. This site here, Learning Sites Inc. They've done this big project about the gates and everything, and what was there. Some of ISIS has destroyed some of the gates and stuff. 2008, and some of the statues and things like that. This image then is one that they've made, this computer projection from the archaeology of what the gates were like. So you've got this slope going up, you've got this massive wall, and it takes you into a courtyard, and then there's another gate, and then a gatehouse, and then you get out through the city. Now, if you're not familiar with castles and stuff in general, of course, this just means that you can get through it's got gates that shut, so it's hard to get through the gate in the first place. You have to bottleneck all your dudes onto the ramp in order to get to the gate in the first place. Then they can drop all sorts of stuff in. If that gate does eventually fail because they've built some siege engine on the outside, they roll it up and smash your doors and that. They get through, but then they're just in this killing ground where on all sides you have archers, every single side, and your army's in here trying to smash this second door in, just getting peppered by arrows from every single side. And the scale of these walls, you can see these little white dots of people. It's just massive, hugely thick walls, and this is the sort of thing where you can see, they talk about the walls of certain cities, that people would race chariots around on the top of the walls, so you can see how unbelievably thick the walls were, and from the reconstructions and stuff like this, you get a good idea of kind of how it would look, and these are the archaeological the plan of what's left of the wall and everything, so they can see that's what's on the floor, and then they've made those projections from that. Here, for example, there's a little market outside the walls and stuff, and so it's a really good, helpful resource, that. So learningsites.inc. And going back, therefore, I've drawn this projection from there to show the nature of the city. We've got people's heads on spikes up on this entranceway, and we talked about the defensive qualities against an army, but anybody who wants to go there has to walk up here, and I've got them with their heads on spikes and stuff, and here I've added can't remember what the word is, but these when you put the spikes in the ground, it stops people being able to run up to your walls, stop sappers and siege engines and stuff. That's something I added myself, of course. And you can see the Shedu or Lamzu, whatever we want to call them, these man-headed sphinx type bull people with wings. Finally, on this image, I added the red behind the city to just add that extra drama. Before it was there, it looked like this, and I was like, okay, it looks good, but then I added that, and I was like, yeah, that's it. It's a sense of drama that we're looking for. Finally, this is the last image we're going to look at now. A montage, again, a vision that that Jonah's seeing, and the Lord continues to saying, because of its wickedness has come up before me. Here in the image, in the background, is a picture of the king that Jonah talks to, doesn't talk directly to, but is affected by the story at the end. And I think I'm just wondering if I should get into who is the king at this point. Perhaps we'll save that for later when we get to him being affected by the story. But the image is drawn from a real stone relief of the king, and tried to make him as accurate as possible. It's always helpful when you've got a portrait of the person that you're trying to draw from history, despite it being 700 years BC. We've got actual images of the people, and so that's him in the background. Here on this side, here you've got the people, and they are impaling people on spikes. This is an image which actually is slightly later than Jonah. The idea, I used it and I was like, well, it doesn't matter, it's slightly later because this is kind of a prophetic image anyway. This is what's gonna happen after, not long after Jonah calls the city to repentance. It's 50 or 100 years later, they raise up their armies and go and destroy Israel. And when they do, at Lachish, they put Hebrew people on spikes. So that is Assyrian soldiers putting Jewish people on spikes. And if I bring up the reference, you can see it there. This is an image from another relief. It's a symbol of a pagan goddess of the moon, and then here you can see that on this plaque thing, I was originally going to have these two guys, and this is a relief from Nineveh as well, of this lion-headed god. So it's a man with a lion's head, but they have these daggers, and he's always fighting. He's a war god essentially, and that is the image that I drew. I actually did the lines and everything for that. Let's switch off a second. But as I was going through the story, I actually came back to this page because I was like, oh, of course, because I saw some of these images, and they have this cult or whatever where they wear these fish. I don't know if I guess it probably is a real fish skin that they've dried out or whatever, but whatever it is, a costume or a real fish that they've dried the skin. The priests wear these and worship Dagon in theory. That's what it's believed to be. But this is an image as well of the Assyrians, and I replaced it. You might be able to tell why, because I thought it's Jonah. In Jonah, there's a man who's like a prophet of God who ends up inside a fish, and here they are dressing as fish people for their worship of their sort of false gods. It was interesting actually, because this connection, some people say, because that Jonah obviously ends up in the whale or the fish or whatever, and then it vomits him up onto the shore. They suppose, people saw this, and because he kind of came out of a fish, they were like, it's a prophet of Dagon or whatever. So they accepted his message because they saw the connection to the fish. Now, that could quite possibly be true in the sense that they kind of heard about it, but people always get the impression that that the fish took Jonah to Nineveh and then sicked him up right outside Nineveh, and then he was there. But that's not possible because Nineveh's so far inland, which is one of the reasons we have the map. So the Jonah goes this way from Joppa and gets caught by the fish and then brought back. So closest it could possibly get is here, and even then he has like a 300 mile or walk to get to Nineveh. So the people here, having heard what happened over here, it's not outside the realms of possibility, but it's not like the fish sicks him up over here. So that's just, I bring that up because it connects to how they have their worship, and they worship like fish gods and all this sort of stuff. So so there's an interesting connection. The actual stela that it's on, this sort of tombstone shaped thing, is also period, because the picture of the king, which we'll talk about another time, is on one such image like that. And then here you can see the text as well in Akkadian scripts, cuneiform, and in the foreground we've got these slaves. I wanted to show, harsh slavery by the Assyrians, so they're bound. It's obvious they've got lots of scars. This guy's lost an eye. They also, at this period with the Assyrians, it talks about them putting like hooks in people's mouths, essentially. So they've got these like piercings through their lip, which they then are drawn by their slavers. And then you've got a male and a female. They're both also naked, as you can see, and dirty, so that, maltreated, brutal slavery. And they're also Jewish people, so it'd be particularly relevant to Jonah. And the story, because obviously Jonah's like, this is unfair, etc. This person here, I've drawn a witch doing the research on Nineveh. There's these documents from the time where it's talking about what do you do if a witch is trying to curse you, and how can you get someone to help you if you've been cursed, and all this sort of stuff. And it also tells you this is the spell that you use as a counter spell for a curse, and it's like you make an effigy of the person and you set it on fire and all this sort of thing. So here she is, she's got these effigies of people, she's got a little brazier there, she's burning them, she's casting her spells. You can see on her wrist she's got an eye and some tattoos, and her face, she's got tattoos there as well. And I've just given her this sort of amulet with a stone. It's going to be a crystal, but in the end I coloured it in blood red, because I thought it would work better visually. The actual image of the lady, I took the design from a real relief of a person, not necessarily a witch, just a woman, but the style of dress and everything. I made it an older lady because it just reads better in the mind to think, oh, it's a witch, just because of our preconceptions. But yeah, she's got this dagger. The dagger is obviously drawn from a period dagger of the time, and then you'll notice that she has these green eyes. So the green is a colour that we use consistently as a motif for the demonic, and this colour, this greeny, colour, because then you got the cyan, which is the colour for the angels, and then this yellowy version, which is the demonic. So she's got this demonic in her eyes. Then behind her we have this idol, and again he has the demonic colour in his eyes. He's got like gemstones for eyes, but I've used that colour. And let's bring him up. So here you go. This is Pazuzu, the demon god of the Assyrians. This is the most well-known idol, but this is like a head as well, so it gives like a more detailed version. And then this is like a talisman with him on. You can see, so he's got these 4 wings, but he also has a scorpion's tail, and he's got this weird face, like a sort of like a lion, and clawed hands and eagle's feet. And yeah, let's go back to him. And so here he is in the image. Oh yeah, he also has. I wonder where the image of that is. But he also has this snake between his legs, some might say. So I've drawn the fire here to obscure what's the connection between the snake and the Pazuzu, but hopefully you can figure out what it's supposed to be. In some of the versions of the images of him, it's like more modern representations, he's got a leg, he's got a snake just kind of coiled around his leg, but anyway. So yeah, I believe that's all the elements of this image covered. Finally, I was just going to show you, this was the image I sent to the colorist. It was Ryan did the colors on this one, but when I drew it, so you can see the lines, this is the lines, to give him an idea of the tones that I was after, because it's got all these things on top of each other that aren't actually lit by the same light, it's not like a real place. I thought it was important to show what I want, want this right at the back, kind of blending into the background, him just a bit before it, him a little bit lighter, and then you've got this fire going across the middle, but then the people in front of the fire are a bit darker. Oh, look, here you go. Look, you can see the little lion dudes here. So yeah, that's so that was just a helpful sort of instruction for the colorist to try and follow to help the image work, so that it has layers rather than just being all like blurred together. Well, we'll stop there. Next time we'll look at the pages as Jonah begins his commission to go and speak to the people of Nineveh. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and select the little notifications button. And if you're on Patreon, thanks so much for being a patron, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.